Hi, Boston buddies. Welcome to what's today? Friday? Friday's edition of Brunch with Boston Buddies. Tonight we have two really special guests. The director and producer of the Boston documentary. And as you look right here, I actually have the poster now in the background from the movie. So please welcome John Dunham and Tom Derderian. Hello.
It's good to be here.
Good to see you.
Yes, you're not going to get a round of applause or anything. There's no live audience, unfortunately. Just me. So I guess maybe we can start with you, John. You're over in Italy right now. How are things over in Italy during these crazy days?
Life here in Italy has been really tough, to be honest, for the last couple of months. It started towards the end of February and we're still in it. Just living in total lockdown mode. Every region of Italy has had slightly different rules. Regrettably, where we are in southern Italy, we've been under some of the most strict lockdown rules and haven't even been allowed to get out and go for walks or run or anything. So for somebody like me that runs, it's been really tough.
Wow, that's difficult, and it's been since February.
Yeah, late February this all started.
And do they have any end in sight, or is it just wait and see right now?
There have been a lot of dates that have come and gone. The current one is beginning of May. Maybe things will start to loosen up just a little bit. But we just take it one day at a time and do the best that we can.
Wow. Maybe you can create a new documentary while you're in isolation.
Yeah.
What to do when you're in isolation. Yeah.
It's a very surreal experience.
Yeah. It's not as bad here. Hopefully it doesn't get as bad as that either. I guess you can't even fly out of the country. You can't leave, huh? So I was going to say, just come here. You can't do it though.
I'm not sure. I haven't tried, to be honest. I do get reports from the U.S. Embassy in Rome on a regular basis, and for a while I was getting emails saying if I wanted to return to the United States, I should do it immediately. Otherwise, be prepared to stay here for indefinitely, which doesn't affect me because I live here. And I understand that there are still, I think there's still one flight a day between Rome and New York, the last I knew.
Okay.
So as a US citizen, I think I might still have that option. I don't know how much it would cost, or if when I get back to the States, if that would, if I would have to stay in quarantine coming from Italy, maybe. I don't know. But anyway, thankfully, that's not an issue. I'm here and I don't need to return.
Awesome. And then Tom, how are you doing up there? You're just outside of Boston, is that correct?
Yeah, we're not as locked down as John, so we're still encouraged to go out and exercise. The governor says, yeah, go for a run. Just don't go to the park and play a pickup basketball game.
Right.
So it's in distance running. It's easy to keep your distance, although a funny phenomenon. I mean, I like running in trails in woods, and I go to the woods, and there's so many people in the woods now. Everyone's going to the parks and going on trails, and they're walking around in the woods. It's crowded there. And I've taken to going for some runs to get away from people by running through neighborhoods when people are all hiding in their houses and there are no cars and there are no people. It's very strange. Now neighborhoods are like the wilderness.
Right.
And the whole city and the running community is in mourning because there's no marathon. Everyone's sort of numb. I mean, what do you do? This is a time everyone would be speculating about the weather. What's the weather? What's the weather going to be for Monday? And it doesn't matter.
That's not today. Right.
Yes.
Well, unless you're going to run the Moly Mile. So the Moly Mile is the race it's a virtual race we're putting on. So you get to choose the best day you want to run, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. So you can do any distance too. We're not really sticklers for rules. You can just go out there and run. So you guys put together the Boston documentary, and I watch this movie all the time. My wife thinks I'm crazy, and every time I put it on, she gets angry at me. But I absolutely loved it. I watched it again 2 nights ago, and I'm telling everybody to watch it Saturday night. You know, it's Boston Marathon weekend. Let's watch it. Have a Saturday night indoor party, and you know, everybody watch the movie. They can get it on Amazon Prime right now. And then it was on PBS last night, actually, and I think it's going to be on PBS again on Monday. So even if you can't watch it Saturday, there's other opportunities for you to watch it. And John, you had said that there's also a link that you can share, which would actually allow you to donate to the project you're working on now, but also give you some behind-the-scenes footage of the documentary.
Yeah, I'll send you that link if you want to post it for
Sure.
the Boston Buddies to take a look at. And yeah, people can get the film that way. And I'll throw in a few scenes that did not make it into the film, but are interesting to see nonetheless. If people are interested in seeing something a little beyond what was actually in the final film.
That's great. Yeah, and you've got 2 other running films to your credit too, for people that are new to you. It's Spirit. You did Spirit of the Marathon 1 and 2 as well, which are 2 other like icons of the running world for us.
Well, yeah, actually, Tom and I met when I was making the first film, Spirit of the Marathon. I came to Boston and I wanted to film an interview with Tom to talk about the Boston Marathon and its history and importance in the running world. And Tom, maybe you want to tell that story, how you started to set me on the right track about what film I really should have been making.
Yeah, John called me and said he was making a film and wanted to interview me about the Boston Marathon. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea since I'd spent a lot of time writing a big fat book about it. Here's the big fat book about it, all those pages.
Here, I got it right here too.
That's a 3rd edition.
It's the Bible of the Boston Marathon.
Then John said he's making a film about the Chicago Marathon. And there was silence. And I said, Chicago? And I said, Chicago? And I started jumping up and down. And you know, what do you mean Chicago? At best, Chicago is the 2nd city. Boston. And I'm jumping up and down. And John says, okay, stop jumping up and down. We'll make one about Boston. It was 2007. It took a while. John can tell all the stuff that happened between 2007 and when we actually started putting this together, which took a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of people.
Yeah, well, 2007, but it came out in 2017? Is that when it came out? So it was about 10 years?
Boston premiered in 2017, that's right.
Right, yeah. I look at you guys actually did a preview or showing just for us 2 years ago for the Boston Buddies, and that's where I met you guys in person for the first time. That's where I met you, Tom, and this is where I picked up that book. And I had not heard of this before, but this book is 800 pages, and it actually has every single Boston Marathon, the results, and not just the results, but a blurb, like a story about the people who ran it and won it that every year. It's just amazing. If you're a Boston buddy, you got to get this book.
Well, you wouldn't expect a book about the marathon to be short.
That's true.
And there's a lot of history, and I wanted to tell the story of every year and put the stories of each year into the context of its times. You know, like a young man and okay, when I looked at Boston Marathon results when I was young and fast and handsome and had no gray hair, and I said, "Hey, I could have won that one. I could have won that one. I could have won that." This Demar guy, I would have blown his doors off. I would have finished 2 miles ahead of him. But if I was a young man in 1910, it was a different world.
Right.
You know, the things people believed was possible in running was different. The ability to train, the diet. I mean, people didn't even have hot showers in their houses, so they take a bath just Saturday night before going to church on Sunday. So
Right.
imagine training all week and just taking a bath once a week.
Yeah.
There were no street lights. It was winter. They didn't plow the streets. The streets were dirt. It was a different world. So I wanted to put the marathon in that context of every year and a different kind of lifetime.
Yeah, and the shoes that alone, were not really meant for running. The shoes that you show in the movie actually of the Japanese runner that won, and it had like the split toe. It looked like
Bifurcated shoe, yeah.
right. It looks like a crab claw. That was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, many runners in those days were just done in by their shoes. They would finish with bloody feet, and it was a matter of surviving the pain of their bleeding feet. I mean, that doesn't happen anymore. The shoes are so much better.
Right.
And now there's even controversy about shoes being too much better.
Right. Well, that's just it. I look at this book and then I look at the documentary. You probably could have made 10 documentaries and not had enough time to tell the whole story.
John did make 10 documentaries. How many hours of footage do you have total?
Yeah, with the raw footage, I think we had 1,000 hours. So.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, there's certainly more material.
How many weeks long movie would that be?
Yeah, we'd have to do the math on that. But
well, people have nothing but time right now. If you want to put that up on a server somewhere and charge people, I'm sure they'd watch the 1,000 hours. But I'm simply amazed at it, and like the stories. You were talking about Demar. Maybe you guys want to tell the history about Demar, and he's won it what 7 times, and he won it as even as a master, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah, he started in like 1910, 11. Then he took time off. Then he came back again and just kept winning year after year after year until he did win when he was over 40. And it was a pretty amazing thing, and it certainly can never happen again. He ran through 2 world wars,
Right.
the Great Depression, and he just kept on going. So he's sort of the epitome of the endurance athlete.
Yeah, that's just a crazy story. There's a marathon named after him still, right? There's a marathon in his honor.
Yeah, and he worked as a typesetter. I mean,
Right.
this is the funny story of him. He worked in the typesetter for the Boston newspaper, and he would run the marathon, he would win the marathon, then he would go to work and set the type for the race that he just won.
Right. So he could tell his own story.
And yeah, I mean, he was working with his hands. I mean, he wasn't the writer, but he was physically setting putting the physical pieces of type into the plates that would then be run over the paper to squeeze the ink into the paper to make the newspaper.
Right.
He was doing physical labor the evening after he won the marathon. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
People just drink beer and party afterwards.
We do. And then he kind of, I guess, passed the torch over to John Kelly, because he was the next one that what did he run? 62 years or so?
Yes.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And so it kind of like the way that the documentary goes, it really is a great chronology of how the marathon evolved over the years. And John Kelly basically, he ran for 7 decades, I guess it would be. He won it twice, and it was 10 years apart, I think, that he won his races. It's just amazing stories.
Yeah. Kelly, I got to know. DeMar had died before I took up running. He died in 57, and I didn't start running until 64.
Okay.
But I certainly knew old Kelly very well.
Right, he was running up into the 90s, wasn't he?
When he was in his 90s, he was still a comedian. I mean, he's quite a showman.
Right.
He would burst into song spontaneously, and he would joke when he was in his 90s that every day he would go out for 15 minutes to run, and he would go out there and come back 15 minutes later whether he had moved or not.
That's funny. That's kind of like the guy that I have on Monday, Gary Finelli. He's another guy that's kind of a comedian runner. He was the guy that ran as the Blues Brothers in Boston and also in New York. He dressed up. He was like the first costume runner, but he was he was a legit runner. He's a sub 220 guy, and he'd
Oh,
be
yeah,
running in a suit.
he ran in the Olympics for American Samoa.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, he's totally entertaining.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's going to be
Sometimes
on.
he annoyed some runners, but most often they chuckled because he was a real thing. He wasn't simply a clown. He was
Oh,
a
no.
runner
No, he's legit.
who was also an entertainer. I mean, if we had the footage, we'd put him in the film, but we
Right.
didn't have any of that.
Right. Yeah, he lives a couple miles from me. So yeah, he's going to be on Monday. He's a great guy. Really great.
I wrote about him once. I titled the story "The Grand Finale."
Okay, that's perfect for him. Yeah. But he's still out there. I'll see him run by my house and stuff every once in a while. But I live on a hilly area. He's like, "Oh, I love the hills by your neighborhood." All right, they're not for me. Maybe I know, Tom, when I was talking to you previously too, you had talked about Shalane Flanagan, and she was basically a little girl when you met her. Like you knew her, and she would run around your house as a little kid, right? Because her mom was a great
The house I'm sitting in, yeah, before she had taken up running, and would play with my daughters, who were a little younger than her, and with her sister Maggie, and they would be doing all sorts of gymnastics stuff in the living room.
Right.
And my daughters actually took up gymnastics more than running.
Okay.
And so it was a delight to see Shalane progress. And her
Right.
father is my old competitor from college. He was at UConn when I was at UMass, so he was the enemy. We had many duels.
Right. And her mom was an American record holder, right? For the marathon.
She was, as
Yeah.
Shalane says, she has good genes.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully I can get her on here one day. We're trying.
Well, she has some free time now that she's not training as much.
Right. So
Well,
I guess
John did a great sequence for the film in a huge ranch in California with a special kind of apparatus. John, do you have that story?
Yeah, we wanted to
Ultimate
capture
arm thing.
So yeah, we wanted to capture some really dramatic footage with Shalane running. So we got some really sophisticated film equipment to film with, kind of a crane attached to a moving vehicle, something that's used a lot of times for car commercials, where you see cameras kind of driving along, tracking with cars and kind of moving alongside and panning around and up and over and doing all kinds of fancy, sophisticated moves. We wanted to use that to film Shalane, which we did. We planned the whole thing out around the Olympic trials that were taking place in Los Angeles. So it was an interesting time. Shalane, of course, ran the trials race and made the Olympic team, but then had a pretty banged up foot afterward. And we were supposed to film this running sequence with her. I don't remember, Tom. Do you remember? Was it like the very next day or maybe 2 days later? But anyway,
The day after, yeah.
Yeah, she was a trooper. And we ended up cutting out a portion of her shoe. So if you look closely at the film and freeze frame it, you may see one of her shoes that's kind of like a Nike sandal.
She cleverly wore black socks, so you can't see the hole so much.
Yeah. And we did it, but Tom was there also, and Tom had an interesting experience. Maybe you want to talk about
yeah, you gave me my assignment for that day. Okay, here I am, Mr. Big Shot, executive producer, and you tell me that I have to go in the rental car to the far end of the road in this gigantic wilderness park, like 400 square mile park, is the biggest privately owned piece of land in the country, Tejon Ranch. And I went with Shalane's husband, Steve. We drove way to the end, and you said, make sure no cars come by. Oh, there were no cars around anywhere. The place was wilderness. There were no people. There was nothing. Steve and I were standing outside the car, waiting for you and your Ultimate Arm machine and Shalane to come running down the road when we looked into the bushes. And there, sneaking along through the bushes, was a mountain lion.
Oh, jeez.
And Steve looked at me, I looked at Steve, and we figured, hey, the mountain lion can't catch Shalane. But we got back in the car.
Right. You just don't want to be the slowest runner that day. Wow. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's just it. I guess some of the if you have 1,000 hours worth of footage, like there's so many other stories probably that could have been told. The movie itself is kind of long, even, and I swear I watch it every time, and it seems like it's a 5-minute movie, but because it's so engrossing, and I just love it. The music in it is perfect. You kind of tie in the 2013 story, but really it was you leave with the 2000, or you end it with 2014, and it's on such a high note. It's the comeback year, and I'm hoping like this September, it's kind of like the same thing, where it's like the comeback race. Who knows? It might be the first marathon in the country, in September. It'd be great.
Yeah, the idea of this film was not as a substitute for the actual race.
Right.
We're supposed to watch the film and then run the race.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, so are there any other interesting little stories, or is there what's the one thing that got on the cutting room floor maybe that you think would people really would have liked to have seen?
Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. Oftentimes we're asked about the famous 1982 race, the Duel in the Sun race. Why is that not in the film? And there are several reasons. Actually, one of the first things that I did when I seriously started doing the research to make the film was I read Tom's book cover to cover. Mm-hmm. And so I got really familiar with every single year of the race, and I took lots of notes and tried to pick out what were some of the most iconic important years for one reason or another. But you can't show every year, obviously.
Right.
And that was kind of a difficult challenge. How do you talk to a Boston Marathon champion and try to explain why their race is not in the film but somebody else's is? And it's just that's what a book is for, as Tom has done. But where the Duel in the Sun is concerned, that I thought for sure, oh yeah, we're definitely going to include that. That was one of the great races, and I had filmed with Beardsley, both Dick Beardsley and Alberto Salazar on previous occasions, making the other films. Mm-hmm. And we did have every intention in including Duel in the Sun in the film, but we weren't able to because the quality of the archival footage was so poor that it just wouldn't hold up on the big screen. And it's a real shame, and actually a reason for making documentary films is actually preservation. If you look at the first Boston Marathon that Bill Rogers won, for example, a really important race, the first Boston that Bill won, and yet the footage, we looked everywhere for footage of that and could only find literally maybe 3 or 4 shots just from archival sources here or there, and they weren't great at that. And we included what we could, but if the footage isn't there, it's not there. And how do you tell the story? So that's a disappointment, and something that I would have liked to have included in the film but couldn't.
Right. Yeah. When you look back on Billy's career and stuff, you rarely see footage of his earlier. When you see the one where he has the hat, basically, where he's running and he throws off the hat near the end, I think that was
79. Yeah,
79. Yeah. but that's the only one you really see footage of. But yeah, you won it what 4 times.
Well, John,
Yep.
remember that long interview with Alberto in Oregon at Nike headquarters?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
we didn't get to use that, but that was a little bit funny in that John is behind the camera. Megan was asking questions. Alberto was seated in this outside endless corridor at Nike headquarters and patiently answering the questions and telling the stories. The stories were greatly amusing about his beginnings, about Coach Squires. There's a light drizzle. We're out of the drizzle, but it's cool. And as this is going on, Alberto, the endurance athlete, keeps answering the questions, patiently sitting and sitting, but it's cold. He's getting colder and colder and colder and beginning to slur his words. His lips are beginning to turn purple. He wasn't going to quit.
Right.
He's going to keep sitting there as long as John was filming. But after a while, he was just too cold. But
Wow.
that's sort of the perils of being tough.
Right. That's like our Tim Moley guy. He was a pro boxer. That's who our race is named after. And he ran a marathon 6 months after full knee replacement surgery. So that was tough. That's why we named the marathon after him.
Wow.
Yeah. And you worked for Nike for a little while too, didn't you, Tom? You have a couple of patents there.
Oh, yes, that was in another life.
You did shoe. What were you doing? Shoe design, or what did the patents?
Yes, yeah. Okay, for example, I was reminded recently by one of the founders of Nike. He said rather generously that I had invented that carbon fiber shoe.
There you go.
Yeah, well, not exactly. I was starting in the early 80s trying to incorporate carbon fiber plates into a running shoe to make it lighter and springier. But we weren't able to get a foam that would support the fiber.
Okay. But
Hey,
this
Roger.
was your idea.
My son just joined us.
Yeah, they kept working on it. It took several decades to get the right kind of foam that would not be destroyed by the carbon fiber.
Gotcha. So John, who just joined us?
This is my son, Roger, who was actually born during the production of the film.
Oh,
Nice. Was it?
I haven't seen it for a year.
Hey, buddy.
Here now.
How old is he?
He's 3.
Okay. I have a 4-year-old, so I know what it's like to be trapped in a house with a child right now.
Yeah, it's been tough. And he's a little runner, so having to stay in one place is difficult.
That's awesome, though. Hey, that's great. Maybe you can have him run in Boston in a few years. You know?
Yeah, maybe eventually.
Yeah. So you invented basically the carbon fiber shoe, Tom. You're just being modest about it.
Well, I started working on the project originally, yes, but a whole lot of other people did a lot of other things to make it actually happen.
So what's your take on the shoe? Like, obviously they just changed the rules. They changed the rules about the shoe and what you can do and how much foam you can have. What do you think about the shoe?
Here's the research we were doing in those days. We'd have a runner run on the treadmill.
Yep.
In this pair of shoes, that pair of shoes, another one. And we found that if a particular runner at a particular weight and a particular pace ran in a really soft shoe on the treadmill, their oxygen uptake, they were breathing into a mask, and we were measuring the oxygen that they exhaled compared to what they inhaled, and the difference was the amount of energy they used. That's quite precise. That physiological test. So we could see that a runner in soft, squishy shoes used a lot of oxygen, a lot of energy.
Wow.
And then we found that the harder the shoe got, the oxygen use decreased, so they were more efficient.
Wow.
Then when the shoe got even harder, the oxygen increased. It went up. So a shoe can be too soft and too hard. There's a place just like Goldilocks right in the middle, which is just right.
Okay.
So the concept here is the cost of cushioning. So
Right.
imagine you're running barefoot on the beach.
Yep.
Right? You run up high, the sand is soft. It's hard to run.
Yep.
You run down close to the water, it's harder. You run
Okay.
someplace in the middle, it's just right. Then you
Okay.
come to a place where there's a lot of stones on the beach.
Okay.
So then you start going, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ah, running. You're trying to cushion your body and protect your feet with your muscles. That's highly inefficient.
Right.
So I mean, there's an absurd cost of cushioning. I mean,
Mhm.
if you tried to run a marathon barefoot on those stones, it would probably take you a week.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So what those shoes do is decrease the cost of cushioning. So there's
Okay.
more energy available for your running, and you're not using your muscles backwards with eccentric contractions to protect your feet and your legs.
Okay.
So you don't have to do that. So it's the ideal surface that you carry around with you.
So that's the real science behind it. Yeah.
It's like the technological difference between the dirt cinder tracks and Mondo all-weather tracks.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
So is it cheating? I don't. It's not cheating, but it is a categorical improvement in the technology.
Right.
But you still have to be fit.
Right.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
not going to run a 2:12 marathon in them no matter what.
That's right.
Right. Right. So we have a question from the audience here. So Kate Gates wants to know, she wants to hear about the premiere in 2017. You know, obviously the premiere of the movie was pretty spectacular. You guys had the Boston Pops, was it, or the Boston Orchestra at the premiere? Can you talk a little bit about that and how that all worked?
Yeah, we were so fortunate to have the composer is Jeff Beal, who's a wonderful film and television composer, perhaps best known for House of Cards, the Netflix series,
Okay.
which is prolific, has done all kinds of work in film and TV. And I've had the good fortune of having Jeff as the composer of all of the films that I've directed. So Jeff was actually one of the first people that I contacted when I said that I was starting work on this film about the Boston Marathon, and he was very excited about the project and involved from day one. And it was Jeff that had the idea to try and involve the Boston Symphony Orchestra, which we eventually did. So the score was written by Jeff, recorded by the Boston Symphony Orchestra, which was an amazing experience. Tom was there in Symphony Hall when we recorded the score. And then we had the Pops perform the score live at the premiere in Boston when the film premiered in 2017.
Yeah, that's just the music is really good. I especially near the end where you kind of, you know, it's coming to the crescendo and stuff, and it's awesome. Like I hate to admit it, but like every time I watch it, I get teary eyed. It's that good. That's why my wife thinks I'm crazy. I don't cry about anything, and then she's like, "You cry over a movie about the Boston Marathon?" So I guess as a director and a producer, what you were trying to do worked if the people cry.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing, I mean, just to add to the fact that, you know, we had the Boston Symphony Orchestra. The Boston Symphony Orchestra has only ever recorded 4 film scores, our film Boston being one of those 4. The other 3 are Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan that Steven Spielberg directed, and then Mystic River, directed by Clint Eastwood. So Boston is only the 4th, and among those, the only documentary. So we were just so fortunate to be able to collaborate with them.
Wow, that's
it was such a treat to be in Symphony Hall with only John, Megan, Eleanor, and 1 or 2 other people in the whole audience. Just a few people, no bodies absorbing the sound, and the Symphony Hall is in an acoustic perfection. But for us, it was like being inside a musical instrument. I mean, they were the 80 or so of the best musicians in the world on stage, and just just us in the audience with microphones dangling from the ceiling to do all the recording. The music sort of just penetrated. I mean, it was playing on all your internal bones. It was magic.
I believe it. Yeah, even just listening to it on my TV, it's the music really does make the movie that much better. The stories are incredible. The music is really good.
There are a couple of cool featurettes. There's a featurette about the making of the score specifically with Jeff, and then there's also a recording of the world premiere show that WBZ did. That includes, of course, the score and a number of different aspects about the the behind the scenes making of the film. And again, anybody that wants to donate, I'll make those links available so you can take a look at that stuff. It's fun to watch.
Sure. Can you maybe you're working on a project right now? Are you allowed to talk about the project that you're working on or no?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about it. I mean, we live in southern Italy and in the city of Naples,
Yep.
Which is arguably Italy's most colorful and controversial city. And so I'm making a film about Naples. It's like the Boston Marathon. It's something that's really personal to me, and so I'm in the middle of the production of that film right now.
Okay. Is it what's controversial about? Is as
Well,
American, it's always you think the mob.
I mean that's one of the things. Yeah, there. Of course, everybody loves Italy. Tourism tends to be focused around Rome and Venice and Florence and places like that. And for many years, Naples has kind of been. Many people have talked about it as a place to avoid because of crime and being a rundown city and lots of negative stereotypes. But and there is a truth to some of those things, but every big city has
Right.
crime and areas that are not so great to visit. Unfortunately, much of the film work, the documentary work, much of the representations that exist of Naples are heavily stereotyped and negative. But it's a beautiful city, and it has areas that are just absolutely gorgeous along the coastline, and it's so rich with history and culture, and it's just a very, very interesting, unique place to visit. A lot of people, it's most famously known for is Pompeii, the ancient Roman city that was destroyed by Vesuvius, is right here. We have Mount Vesuvius. I can see it from our balcony as we're doing this interview, right there. And then Pompeii is on the other side of it. A lot of people go and visit Pompeii, but they don't visit Naples, and they should, because it's an amazing city.
Yeah, I was there when I was 18, but I did a tour of Italy. My sister lived in Germany at the time, and I was 18. And I didn't fully appreciate everything that was there because we went to Rome. We didn't go to Venice, but we went to Naples and saw Pompeii, and we went to the island of Capri.
Yeah.
And it was great, but as an 18-year-old, I didn't appreciate it like I probably would today. And it's a long time ago. I need to refresh my memory on that city.
Yeah, come back over.
Yeah, let me know when you open up, and I'll come over.
It's a great place to run. I just have amazing runs that I do along the waterfront here.
I believe it. And Tom, these days you're spending time as a coach, right, at Greater Boston Track Club?
Well, I'm spending time as an email typer coach.
Right, you're one of the coaches. I mean, that's one of the premier track clubs in the country, if not the premier track club in the country.
Yeah, the people we have are top level athletes, but short of professionals. So there are people who are working, are grad students, who are members of varsity college teams. So they're really
Right.
good, but they're doing something else for a living.
Right.
But running is a huge social thing for them. That is, just imagine a young person gets a job or goes to school in a different city.
Yep.
What do? They were on a track team in college. They had all their teammates, and now who do they have? Well, our club forms that sort of social athletic function
Mhm.
where people can get together, train together, and try to do this difficult thing together rather than go to work and then go to a bar and watch sports on TV and eat chippy things and drink beer and shout at,
Right.
I mean, it's something to be an athlete yourself.
Right.
And it's sad that they can't do this together now.
Right.
Because I mean, that's where the energy comes from when you're on the track in a workout with your teammates at your elbows.
Yeah.
Then that we're so eager for that to happen again.
It will. We will be back. There's no doubt about it. We will be back. We've got another question from the audience here. Hopefully, all right. So Julie Higgins, she says, "What year and what was the name of the runner who heard the train in Framingham, sped up and won because the whole field had to wait a long time for the train to pass?" I never heard that one.
Oh, that was Tom Longboat.
Okay, so people actually had to wait for a train. Sounds like the Via Marathon a couple years ago.
Yes, he had a lead. He crossed the tracks, and there was a train. And all the other runners had to wait, and they could chase after him again. Longboat would have won anyway, but the other guys in Framingham at 6 miles, so they had their race reset. They all bunched up, and then it was like the starting line again.
Right.
And that's happened several other times at Boston and in many other marathons too, and road races. Somebody forgot to tell somebody, hold off on the train.
Right. Yeah, it happened at the Via Marathon. That's here in Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania a few years ago. So yeah.
One of my runners was in that and stopped by the train.
Yeah. We've got Jacqueline Garou just joined us. She actually did an interview for us last week, but she had she was a big highlight in your movie. I love her story, and just I loved her enthusiasm and everything when we did the interview. She just is all class.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Yeah, Jacqueline just joined us. Jacqueline Garou. So you know her, John.
Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Well, she joined us on the Facebook. She's not actually in the
okay.
in this. Yeah.
We did the interview with Jacqueline, and then she gave me a massage afterward that I will never forget. It was very, very painful, but actually very helpful also.
Awesome. Yeah, that's what she does now, is massage therapy. Yeah. Now, did you try and track down Rosie Ruiz when you were doing this documentary?
We didn't try. I mean, we knew that was a story that we wanted to tell, but decided just to work with Bill and the archival footage, of course.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, it's unfortunate. She passed away last year, so the interview will never happen. And Tom, actually, we talked with Jeff Galloway yesterday. He ran the 1972 Olympic trials, and you ran the Olympic trials that year as well, didn't you?
Yes. Here's my Jeff Galloway story at Boston. It was Boston in 72, a little while before the Olympic trials that year. And I'm running in a pack with Jeff, Justin Gubbins, and a few other guys. And then I slowed down a little bit. They got ahead of me. And later on, I caught up, and I said in this, cavalier young man fashion, "Hey, I'm back. Do you guys miss me?" and Jeff says, "Yeah. Where you been?" And I said, "Oh, I had to stop and make a phone call." 10 feet down the road, Jeff turns and says, "Next time, write a letter."
That's right. He's a great guy. He's very knowledgeable. He was awesome yesterday.
Uh,
Um,
yes, he's terrific. Yes.
yeah, and in his method, he said he's never been injured using his method in like 40, 50 years of running. He's never had an injury, which that's pretty amazing. So yeah. What about who else? Who else has a story like that? Like, what are the other stuff that you? I mean, Tom, you could probably talk about this for years and years and years, considering how big this book is. How about like Billy Rogers? Like, because you were around when Billy Rogers was winning these things, and he was in Boston. Were you a teammate of his, or like, did you know him then?
Oh, very well. He, well, he first tried to run Boston, dropped out. And later, the fall of '73, we're at this minor marathon that I was just going to run as a long run with people I was coaching, because it wasn't such a big deal race. And Billy's there and says, I've never finished one of these. And I said, well, just stick with me. We'll finish. And the race was composed of 5-mile loops. We were in about 50th place after 5 miles, just trotting along and chatting. And then we picked it up a little bit more, and we kept moving up in the passing people. Then with 5 miles to go, Billy says, hey, I feel good. Want to pick it up? I said, okay. I started running 5:20 miles. Billy started running 5-minute miles, and he won the thing. He passed everybody.
Right. You paced it.
Well, wait a minute. We've created a monster here. I mean, from 50th place to first.
Wow. So you launched his career. Not only did you invent the carbon plate, you launched Billy's career in marathon.
Well, yeah, he nicely says that, but who knows what happens? He may have decided, oh, marathon's not for me, and concentrated on shorter races like cross country.
Right. I
mean, what is it that happens in someone's life and says, I think I want to be good at this, or I want to be good at this other thing. It's these little things that make a difference.
Well, winning probably helped him. Winning that day probably helped him.
Well, yeah, but later on, the next year, we went to Philadelphia Marathon. So we all piled into my car, and drove to Philadelphia from Boston. We got to a hotel where we all rented one room, and there were like 8 of us in one room. We took the mattresses, put the mattress on the floor, 2 guys in the box spring, 2 guys in the mattress, somebody in the bathtub, because we had no money.
Right. Yeah, they didn't pay you to run.
Billy won the race, and I was 4th or 5th. And we went to the race director, and we asked if we could have our entry fee money back so we could pay for gas to get home.
That's funny.
That's how impoverished we were in those days. A year later, Billy won Boston. Billy finished 3rd in the World Cross Country Championships. Then he won Boston, and after that, it was magic.
Yeah. Now, when you ran Philly, was it point to point when you ran it? Because it used to be, the old course used to start outside of Philadelphia in like Ambler and run into the city. I'm not sure when you ran it. Or was it a loop course when you ran it?
It was 3 loops around the Schuylkill River.
Oh, okay.
Starting near the museum.
Okay,
So
that was one.
Up the river, across a bridge, and then back again, and then around the museum, and do it over again.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing that on Sunday for my Moley marathon. Yeah, is that loop? It's like an 8.4 mile loop around the art museum, around the river. Yeah.
Yes.
Here, Jacqueline says hi. She says hi, John and Tom. I'm glad to see you, but sad it's not in person. And then she put a little heart emoji for you guys.
Likewise.
It's
good to hear her message.
Yeah, she's just unbelievable. And then we actually, look, Jeff Smith just actually joined us. He's actually in your movie as well. 1984, 1985 winner. He's going to be joining us on Tuesday for an interview.
Yeah, I missed seeing Jeff at New Bedford every year would have a long chat. And no New Bedford race, no Boston. I'm just missing everyone.
Yeah, I think everybody's missing everybody right now. That's why these things help, at least. It's good just to see everybody's face, and try and get together. That's why we're trying to keep these things up and keep it positive.
Yeah, I mean, running isn't just about running, and it's not about just competition and winning and PRs. But it's about all the people you're with.
Exactly.
The people you run with, train with, suffer with. I mean, that's a special bond.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the reasons why this group started, was because the people that run Boston are a little bit different, I think, than your everyday runner, because we're training so much, a lot of us in isolation, just because you got to run at speeds that most people aren't going to be running at. And that's one of the reasons why this group started, was just to get people who were alone together and help encourage them. So that's even this weekend, there's a lot of heartbreak with people not being able to run. A lot of people were supposed to be traveling to Boston today for the marathon. So we did this virtual race just to kind of distract people. Here, we've got the medal and everything. See, you get a medal if you do it. You can still sign up. Yeah.
You're well organized.
We try. And so, is there anything else that you guys want to chat about? We've been going at it for about an hour. I'm happy to go all afternoon. I could hear you guys talk all day, because I'm telling you, this is the best movie I've ever watched. I love watching this movie.
Thank you. I don't know. There are lots of stories to tell. Would love to chat more. I've got family I need to get to,
Yep.
But we can also plan another one of these if.
Yeah, I would love it. Maybe we could bring in some of the people that watched it this weekend and have them ask questions or just chat with you guys about it. That would be fun.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. I'll post links. I think you emailed me the link for the download so that people can see behind the scenes footage and purchase or donate to the movie. And then I so appreciate everything that you guys have done. And hopefully September we'll be able to watch this movie in Boston.
That would be a delight.
Yeah.
Watch it all together on a big screen.
Right. There's only 10,000 of us. We need a big theater. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Be safe. Same to all of you.